Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Um, and welcome to the seventh and final part to the first Star Trek marathon. It's been a long ride. Most of these have been pretty good, and obviously except for five, but that was entertaining to watch at least. Um, it's been a really fun ride, but now we kind of gotten to a point where I'm not really that familiar with the franchise. Granted, I've seen almost every episode of every season of TNG. Um, and I've obviously now have seen all the feature films. Um, but oh boy, this was an emotional ride for me at least. Well, I shouldn't say emotional. It was a whole bunch of emotions at the same time. Um, so like I said in the Star Trek 6 review, I have seen all of these Star Trek movies before, except for Generations. Um, and I finally watched it for the first time. As you guys can see with the TV behind me, it has like the no signal box. There goes my phone. Um, and I literally just got back from watching it, and to be honest, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Certainly not the best of the TNG movies that will be covered next time, but it's certainly it's certainly the second best of the TNG films. Well, for me, honestly, it kind of flips flops between this and honestly Nemesis, but we'll get to that later. Um, but yeah, I will get on to my points later about why this was a whole bunch of flip flopping emotions for me. But let's get on to the details. So this was directed by David Carson, and it was released on November 17th, 1994, with a budget of $35 million. It made 75 domestically, and worldwide it made $120 million. There it goes again. Um, and um, and so yeah, I didn't think it was that bad, but I also didn't think it was like I said, it wasn't the best out of the TNG films. But let's get on to that plot. Alright, so the plot for this film is in the 23rd century, the Starship Enterprise B is dispatched to the scene of a giant energy ribbon about to engulf two ships. Captain Kirk, played by, for the final time by William Shatner, averts calamity, but is exposed to the ribbon and is presumed dead. 78 years later, the Enterprise D commander, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, played by Patrick Stewart, learns that one of the disaster's survivors, Dr. Tolian Soren, played by Malcolm McDowell, plans to enter the ribbon by destroying a neighboring star. Picard must now collaborate with an unlikely ally in order to stop him. Um, so far in my film review, in my movie review career, this has the biggest cast I need to talk about. Um, Because not only I had to introduce um all of the TNG crew because this is the first film that they're in, but I also need to talk about the villain, the returning cast members, and some other main side characters. So obviously the main two are Jean-Luc Picard and Captain James T. Kirk. So first off, Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard. I haven't like in terms of full movies and TV shows. I haven't really seen Patrick Stewart outside of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and so far, I believe the first episode of Deep Space Nine, where he makes kind of his appearance to kind of assign Benjamin Sisko to his assignment. Um, it's kind of ironic that I mentioned the first episode of Deep Space Nine, because that will come back later. Not the first episode, but the Deep Space Nine as a whole. Um, I'm just gonna say it right now, all the TNG crew do fantastic. And then we have obviously William Shatner as James T. Kirk and his final appearance as James T. Kirk in the Star Trek. in the main timeline canon, this is the last appearance of him, and I will discuss why later. But if you already have known, then it should come as no surprise. We also have Jonathan Frakes as Commander William T. Riker. He would actually go on to direct the next two Star Trek films, which is Star Trek First Contact and Insurrection, which surprisingly goes from First Contact to one of the best Star Trek films ever made to Insurrection, which is one of the worst Star Trek films ever made. Um, we have Brent Spiner as Data. He plays a much more significant role in this film and kind of also in the next film, First Contact. But I'll talk about that when I get to First Contact. Um, so in this film, he decides that he wants to have the emotion chip to be planted inside him because he is an artificial intelligent. Um, and there's a lot of scenes with him trying to kind of his emotions getting the best of him and him kind of malfunctioning a bit. But um, so we also have Marina Sirtis as Deanna Troy, LeVar Burton as Geordi LaForge, Michael Dorn as Lieutenant Commander Worf. Um, if you guys may remember from Star Trek 6, he did make a cameo in that film as Colonel Worf, but I believe it's only in the director's cut. But if you want to find out more about that, go and check out the previous video. Um, we also have Gates or McFadden, I don't know how you say that last name, but Gates McFadden as Dr. Beverly Crusher, Whoopi Goldberg as Guinan, and I believe that's it for all the main TNG characters, and they all do great performances, by the way. So the main villain for this film is Malcolm McDowell. I believe this is actually the first film that the first full film that I've seen him in. I've obviously heard of him. The only films I can really think of at the top of my head right now are the reboots of Halloween 1 and 2, which I don't really want to talk about because they're pretty bad. We also have James Doohan and Walter Koenig returning as Scotty and Chekhov respectively, and obviously they are only in the Enterprise B sequence at the beginning of the film, along with Alan Ruck as Captain John Harriman. I only really remember Alan from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We have Barbara March as Lursa and Gitnif. I'm really sorry. I'm gonna butcher this because I really don't know how to say her name. Gitnif Wash. I think that's how you say it. I'm not really sure. I'm really sorry for butchering that as uh Bitor. I think that's how you say it. I forgot which one it was, but unfortunately um one of the sisters did pass away a couple years ago, and that's very unfortunate. She, but they both do very great performances. Why does my phone keep on blowing up? Stupid Instagram posts. See what? This is what happens when you make Instagram posts on your channel about when your new videos are coming out. And then we got uh, I'm gonna butcher this name as well, and I'm really sorry for this. Guacaline Kim as Demora Sulu. Obviously, again, she appeared in the Enterprise B sequences. And okay, I'm just gonna say right now, the Enterprise B sequence at the beginning of the film, the best 10 minutes of any Star Trek film ever. It's very exciting, very action packed, and it kind of just sets like this is what the movie's about, and we're not just gonna be thrusted into this thing that we barely know about. Um, but it kind of sets what uh, this ribbon is about, and unfortunately, due um, to freighter ships. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Um, so yeah, that like I said, the Enterprise B sequence is the like I said, it's the best 10 minutes of any Star Trek film. Um, it's unfortunate that really when we get to the Enterprise D, and that whole like all the TNG cast, it kind of goes downhill a bit. Um, it's really unfortunate. Um, um, Even though I do have a favorite scene, and it is I guess I'll just mention it now. Um, my favorite scene in the one of my favorite scenes, or my first favorite scene, I should just say that. My first favorite scene is when Worf gets a when cuz in the series he's Lieutenant Worf. But in this film and in the rest of the films, he is a lieutenant commander. And because in this film he does get a promotion, and it's probably one of the more funnier scenes of the film. Um, but during like after Worf gets promoted and he falls into the water, um, Picard gets a message from Earth. Like Starfleet sends him a message from Earth, and when he first gets the message, we don't know like what it is, but we know that it really affects him. And um, we go, I think about maybe half an hour into the film, and then we finally figure out what the problem is. When Counselor Troy comes in to see what's happening with Picard, and he explains that because he's looking through a whole bunch of pictures, and he says that I think the name is Revere. So Revere, he was gonna go and meet with him and his parents, which was his brother, in a month from when this film takes place, and the message said that they all burned in a fire, um, and so now he has to cope with the fact that not only he has to cope with the fact that they're gone, but now he's the last of the Picards. And I think it's a really emotional scene, and I think Patrick Stewart does the best performance in the whole film. He really pulls off that emotional scene, and it it's a very nice scene. And Miranda Sirtis does a very nice job as well. Um, my second favorite scene is probably the um the scene where Picard first encounters Soren on the planet right before he shoots the missile, and they have this conversation, and then he realizes that there's a hole in the barrier because he tries to get in, and there's a barrier, so he goes through this hole, and he has this little fight with Malcolm McDowell, and they have a short little skirmish, and then the missile launches, and then Picard gets taken to the Nexus, and he finds that because I guess I probably should explain the Nexus. So basically, it's this energy ribbon that if it comes in contact with you, you disappear and you basically go into the Nexus, but you don't appear in space. Essentially what the Nexus does is that it takes your happiest thoughts and puts you in them. So in Picard's case, because of the loss of his brother and his family, since he's the last Picard, he wanted to raise a family to kind of continue the legacy. But even though he doesn't really explain it, um, I'm very tired. It's very late. It's like 6 when I'm recording this. Um, um, so, um, so, even though he doesn't really explain it at first, uh, he, so basically he always wanted a family. So when he enters the Nexus, what he sees is a whole family of Picard's, and there's a whole bunch of children and his wife, and Guinan shows up, and she basically explains, even though I'm on the Enterprise, think of it as this is a piece of who I am, of the person that you know, and that is, and I'm a kind of a piece of her that she left behind in the Nexus. Um, and it's it's a very emotional scene because he realized that he figures out very quickly that it isn't real, and then he goes to find Kirk. And then my last favorite scene, which kind of has to link to my one of my biggest problems with the film, but I'll talk about that when I get to it, is when after both Kirk and Picard have fought Soren and Soren is defeated, Kirk unfortunately falls off a bridge and is crushed by it. And Picard and Kirk have this final scene where Kirk says, like, did we do it? And Picard says yes, and he goes, it was fun. And the famous line of "Oh my" was from this scene. Um, and that honestly almost made me cry. If I had to be completely honest, it because like I said earlier in the previous reviews, Kirk is my favorite character of all time. So to see him, really sorry about this. To see him kind of killed off was very sad, and I I don't know if he's ever planning on returning to the character. Um, but I don't think he's ever planned on actually with uh returning as Kirk in canon timeline. They've obviously done it with novels and stuff. Like when I did my last Star Trek collection video a couple years ago, I had a book called Star Trek Odyssey, which was a combination of like the Ashes of Eden and like two other books, and that followed like right after the events of Generations. Um, and um, that's basically memory beta. So it's really unconfirmed if Patrick Stewart, if William Shatner is returning to Kirk in the canon timeline. Um, but I guess might as well talk about the problems now. Cause people mention they don't say this is a bad movie. They just call it a mediocre film. But they do say there's a lot of plot holes in this film, and I personally have to agree. It's very noticeable. If you want to go and watch other people review Star Trek Generations, there's a whole bunch of videos where they talk about the plot holes and stuff. I'm not gonna get into that. Um, except for the main one that I've seen. Everyone who reviews this movie always complains about is this moment where both Kirk and Data. I mean, not Kirk. Picard and Data are in the stellar cartography room, and they're trying to figure out how like Soren is going to get back into the Nexus, and Picard. The lines are that kind of kind of ticks everyone off is when Picard goes, "Why doesn't Soren just fly a ship into it?" Um, and Data goes, "Our records show that any ship that comes into contact with the ribbon has either been destroyed or severely damaged." And that obviously comes back to the first scene in the film with the ships and the ribbon with the Enterprise B. Now that is true, but there's people have mentioned like a whole bunch of different ways that Soren could have like went into could have gotten into the Nexus without blowing up a star, coming to where he is, like changing the course of the ribbon and getting where he is and like destroying Viridian 4. It's people have talked to death about it. So, like I said, If you want to figure out, if you want to see what people talk about with the plot holes and stuff, go and watch that sort of stuff. Uh, it's either like ranking videos I've seen or just straight up reviews of it. Um, but my one of my main problems, which I barely hear anyone talk about, is after Kirk dies, why does Picard bury? Like, I get why they, because it's like kind of naval tradition, but why don't take his body and like bring it, like take it to one of the Federation ships so that they can try and save him? You know, instead of burying him on this planet where no one's gonna find him. Or if he is going to leave Kirk's body there, why don't tell Riker or one of the or anyone in Starfleet that Kirk's body, like one of the most famous captains in Starfleet, is on this planet and is either dying or dead, and they could try and help him. It just pisses me off so much that they don't acknowledge that. It's just okay. We're just gonna bury Kirk on this planet and just forget about him for like the whole rest of the series. And that just really makes me angry because like they don't follow up on that, and it's just so stupid. Like, just Star Trek writers always piss me off sometimes. Um, but yeah, that's my main problem with the film. You can talk about all the plot holes and stuff, but everyone talks to death about that sort of thing. The main thing, and like I said, just change it with a rewrite or something. It's not that hard to do. You could just literally just make someone say, look, or Picard tells someone or Riker or anyone, just say, hey, one of the most famous Starfleet captains is on this planet. Why don't we try and save him? Or you know what, Picard, why couldn't you just carry his body like to a shuttle so you could try and like get him back to his starship to try and save him? It's so stupid. Ugh. As you guys can tell, that really ticks me off, and it ticks me off that no one really talks about that, and I think it's really a shame. But I think really a lot more people should pay attention to that sort of stuff because I really think like don't leave a legend's body in the middle like of basically nowhere. Yeah. Writers just are sometimes very, very stupid. It's just ugh. Um. Okay. I'm gonna try and calm down a bit because that I went off. So I guess we'll just go into the fun facts, the composer, and what I rate this film to try and calm myself down a bit. Um. So the fun fact I have is that the scenes on the Enterprise B. Okay. So did you know that on the scenes on the Enterprise B, both Spock and McCoy were supposed to be on the ship with Kirk, but due to like some scheduling conflicts and certain stuff that went on, they were eventually changed to Scotty and Chekhov. So, from what I've gathered, Leonard Nimoy wanted to not only come back in this one little basically cameo role, but he also wanted to direct the film. Um, I mean, honestly, if he might have directed it, it might have been a little bit better from what the film actually was, but I don't think it would have been improved that much. Um, so maybe it was a good idea that he wasn't hired as director and he could have been in this cameo. I'm not sure, but I don't really know if hiring him as director would have been a good idea. Um, but so that's why Spock didn't return and McCoy didn't return because after Star Trek 6, um, Deforest Kelly was getting very old. Um, I think you can literally tell in Star Trek 6 that like his uniforms are like really kind of small compared to like Shatner's or like Nimoy's uniform like suits. Kelly's is very slim, and that was because he was getting very old, and um uh obviously by this point he wasn't doing very well. Um and apparently for him to come on set he needed a like a contract or something to be on set, and he couldn't pay that because he needed to pay he needed the money for his medical bills, so that's why he didn't return, and that's why Scotty and Chekhov were were in instead of Spock and McCoy. And might as well mention it now since I'm on the subject of DeForest Kelly. So this film was like 93, 94. So basically 4 to 5 years later, in 1999, DeForest Kelly unfortunately did pass away, um, and it's very sad. And also Leonard Nimoy did die in 2015. So literally I believe also like I know James Doohan did pass away. I'm not sure Walter Koenig did. I know Nichelle Nichols and uh, George Takei are still alive along with William Shatner. But it's sad that we have a whole bunch of classic Star Trek actors that are no longer with us. So I guess this film is not this film. This video is kind of dedicated to them in my sort of respects. So to the cast and crew of the original Star Trek series, um, we even though some of you are still here, we still appreciate all of you for what all of you have done. Um, and really quickly, I do want to talk about the composer. It is Dennis McCarthy. And now, if you are a true Star Trek fan, you guys may know that Dennis McCarthy did work on Star Trek: The Next Generation as the main composer for the series. And he makes, I believe, this is his final. This is his final Star Trek composing role. Cause after this, for the rest of the films, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis, he was replaced by the fantastic Jerry Goldsmith. Even though I prefer those scores over what McCarthy did, for this film, I think it's fine. Um, it certainly makes you feel like you're in the TNG era, and I really do like that a lot. Um, but like I said, compared to like First Contact or like even Nemesis, the score is kind of lackluster to that. But like I said, for this film, it's fine. So yeah, that was my review of Star Trek. Oh, actually, I'm gonna give this film. It's not a bad film, but it's not. It's a good film, but with a lot of problems. So I'm gonna give this film a 6 out of 10. Um, I thought it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, but there is a crap ton of plot holes in this film that you would practically, if you are practically deaf, you cannot, like, you are blind and deaf to not understand, to not, you know, get any of these plot holes that are in the film. Um, but yeah, so next time we're going to be talking about Star Trek First Contact, which is the best TNG film and one of the best Star Trek films of all time. So hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys for First Contact. Live long and prosper. Out.